Hi everybody, and welcome back to another chapter of my novel, Living Nightmare. Before I give you a recap of last week's chapter 17, I just wanted to make a mention that on October 5th, I will be part of a fundraiser to raise money for the birthing center at Lakeshore Hospital. The fundraiser is called AuthorFest, and it's led by Carolyn Flower. To learn more about this fundraiser and how you can participate or donate, you can check out the link that I have shared on my Facebook page, DM Dore Writes. I have it pinned so you can find it at the top. Now for my book. Last week in chapter 17, Tobin woke up to find Hannah missing from her room and found her wandering the halls. Despite Tobin insisting she talk to the doctor about her lost time, Hannah refused. Chapter 18. I'm a fish in a sparkly bowl set under a spotlight. I swim around and around, desperate to be free, but forever encircled in glass. Forever made to depend on another's hands to feed me, clean my home, and keep me safe. Who will protect me from the one who owns my home? Tobin. Toby! I know I'm bad. Didn't write. I'm so sorry. You forgive me, right? Of course you do. We're besties. We've been super busy. I was on a train. Can you believe it? Me. We took the Via Rail train to Toronto. Uncle said it's better than driving. It took 5 hours and 8 minutes. Cool, no? I sat by the windows. There's so many people in Toronto. I wanted to sightsee, but Uncle said there was no time. I met lots of people, though. Some were really nice, others not so much. Uncle promised we can go again. Hey, maybe you can come with us. Wouldn't that be fun? Can't wait to see you. I promised to write lots more. Supposed to go for a walk with Madame Lacombe later, so I will drop this in the mailbox. I found where Uncle keeps his stamps. Write you soon. Love, your bestest friend ever, Ange. Tobin had a smile on her face as she read the letter a second time. It was written on purple paper with light pink dots. Ange wrote in blue ink that moved across the page in carefree waves. The envelope was the same pink as the last one, except instead of the smiling flower on the back, she had drawn a rainbow with blue clouds at either end. Still, no return address. Marie delivered the letter to Tobin in the common room, much to her dismay. Getting mail was a rarity for Tobin, and she wished Marie hadn't put her on display by bringing it to her in the open. The patients near her turned to watch and waited for her to read Ange's letter. Marie asked after Ange, how she was doing and what she'd written Tobin. The letters were hers, though. She wasn't going to share them. Ignoring the expectant look on Marie's face, Tobin gave a vague response, said thanks, and headed for her room. Hannah was with Dr. Dawson, so Tobin was able to read the letter again, before adding it to the rest, safe in the dresser drawer. A smile lit her face. Ange hadn't forgotten her. She was traveling. A lot, from the sounds of it. Why? She went to her bed and stretched out on her back. Did Mr. Barton's job require him to travel? She frowned. What was his job? Ange never said, only that she got to sit by the window. Ange on a 5-hour train ride. How did Mr. Barton get her to sit still for that long? Tobin chuckled under her breath. He probably didn't. She could see Ange dancing in her seat, getting antsy with every passing minute until she couldn't stand it. Tobin closed her eyes. Ange would pace the aisle between the rows of seats, starting conversations with other travelers. Did the strangers welcome the distraction, or would they be rude and tell her to leave them alone? If Tobin had to guess, it would have been a bit of both. She bet Mr. Barton wouldn't have been impressed with Ange if the latter happened. She could hear his curt voice telling her to sit. Ladies, don't annoy strangers. She missed Ange. Her good mood vanished when Hannah returned. Dr. Owens was arriving within the week. Tobin wondered if Angie's offer to join their next trip would be coming anytime soon. Getting away sounded like a great idea. The fourth floor was introduced to Dr. Howard Owens and Meredith Mercy on the 16th of June. Everyone gathered in the common room, a room which was recently dusted, swept, and buffed to shine as if royalty was visiting instead of board members and the new staff members. Patients waited in excitement and a little bit of fear. The fear came from Tobin. She stood, choosing to stay on her feet rather than fighting for a seat, and counted to calm the nervous vibrations storming through her system. The inquisitive chatter from patients, a constant shifting from restless energy, blended in with the nurse's order to have patience. The cumulative noises cranked her anxiety up to its maximum level. She had counted to 178 before they entered. Tobin vaguely recognized the board member from the handful of visits he had made during her stay. Tobin guessed he was the Michael with whom Dr. Dawson had been talking to on the phone a week earlier. He led the parade in, wearing a navy suit and no tie. The first two buttons on his light blue shirt were undone. Next to enter was Carter Johnson, the only board member she actually met, a handsome man in his 60s, though his hair had more gray than its original blonde. He wore a genial expression, and his green eyes never lingered on anyone for long. Behind him was Dr. Dawson. He had done his best to dress for the occasion in black pants and a gray dress shirt. However, his shirt was missing its middle button. A coffee stain could be seen on his right sleeve, though he had tried to hide it by rolling the sleeves to the elbows. He took his time entering. One hand was thrust into the pocket of his pants, while the other swung lightly at his side. His face was a stern mask compared to the gentle smile that Marie wore as she walked on his left. Marie gave the patients a small wave. She had on the official Mendwell nurse's uniform, with a mint green cashmere sweater draped on her shoulders. The sweater threatened to fall from her waving until she tied the sleeves together around her neck. She and Dr. Dawson stopped before the television. The sounds of approaching footfalls returned Tobin's attention to the door and to the people she wasn't looking forward to meeting. The couple sauntered in. The woman was deceptively tall in red heels, probably no more than 5'5". In flats, her heels boosted her to 5'9". Long honey blonde hair hit the middle of her back in a straight curtain. Her skin was dusted with a light tan stretched across prominent cheekbones and a sharp chin. She had a dainty nose and a red-painted full mouth. Her eyes were too dark to make out. Blue, maybe gray. Tobin squinted but couldn't tell. She returned her attention to the woman's clothes. She wore an expensive pinstripe skirt that started below the bust line and cut off at the knees, and a clean white blouse with a ruffled front and a matching jacket. She was beautiful, and she walked like she knew it. In contrast, Dr. Owens was 3 inches shorter and at least 20 pounds overweight. His gray suit looked as impressive and expensive as the woman's. He wore a white lab coat over the suit as if to stress the fact that he was a doctor and therefore important. His face was round and his nose sat at its very center, jutting out and demanding attention. Neatly trimmed, thick eyebrows rested above his heavy-lidded brown eyes, the same color as his hair. He strode into the room with purpose, a sense of ownership, as though the ward was his place. She didn't like them. "If I could have your attention, please," said the board member who may have been Michael. A hush descended upon the room. "Thank you. Now, as most of you know, we've opened our doors to a clinical study. I'd like you to meet the man behind the trial, Dr. Howard Owens." He gestured towards the doctor, who stepped forward to speak. "Hello, everyone," he said. "I'm pleased to be here, thrilled to be given the chance to help as many of you as I can." He gave a wide smile, meeting each patient's gaze individually. Tobin stared at the floor. Clearing his throat, Dr. Owens continued. "I wouldn't be able to do that without the help of this talented lady," he said, turning to the woman beside him. "Meredith Mercy is a very talented hypnotist who's helped many people and can't wait to help more. Isn't that right, Miss Mercy?" Her ruby lips curved upward at his praise. "With her skills, I know we'll make positive changes in your lives. It's a simple procedure, painless really. I don't want to go into detail right now, for I'm sure the medical mumbo-jumbo would go over your heads," he chuckled. "Yes, of course, because crazies can't comprehend anything requiring more than 2 brain cells." Tobin disliked his thinly veiled, patronizing speech. Being patients didn't make them stupid. And though she wanted to point that out, she kept quiet. She didn't want to be noticed. "Now," said Dr. Owens, clapping his hands, "over the coming days, I'll be asking some questions, observing your normal routines, and calling your parents and caregivers. When I've established who's interested, I'll call another meeting. Sound good?" He paused for the obligatory responses of approval. "Excellent," he said. "Simply excellent." The meeting ended as abruptly as it had begun. The 2 board members stayed behind to talk to the doctor and his hypnotist sidekick, while the nurses reminded patients to get their meds, take their lunches, or go off to their therapy sessions. Dr. Dawson and Marie huddled by the windows, their expressions grave. Hannah went straight to the new doctor, Tobin cursed. She wanted to discuss the trial crap before Hannah made any quick decisions. Too late. Hannah might have been swept up by the promise of a magical cure, but Tobin was more skeptical. What exactly would the clinical trial involve, and why was Dr. Dawson against it? At the very least, he clearly had misgivings. It was good to ask questions. Solving problems was a hobby of hers. Mentally cracking her knuckles, Tobin decided that eavesdropping on the conversations of staff members would be the best method to get information on the newcomers. 2 days later, Tobin sat at a table in the common room with Hannah and Tristan. Dr. Owens had kept his word, skulking the hallways, observing patients, and speaking to staff. In other words, from Tobin's perspective, being a nuisance. He'd informed the patients who might be interested in the trial to meet him in the common room. One call from her parents later, here she was, joining Hannah and 10 others as they awaited the miracle cure. Tobin noticed the anxious expression on Hannah's face and shifted in her seat. She knew that her roommate wanted her memories back and hoped this would work out for her. Tobin just wished she didn't have to be a part of it. She eyed the stack of papers waiting in the middle of the table. "Now remember, be honest." Miss Mercy passed out freshly sharpened pencils as she spoke. "This questionnaire is meant to help us determine which of you will have a higher chance at benefiting from the trial. Lying will only result in failure, not to mention the fact you'd be stealing the spot from someone who needs this more." She looked around the table, making sure everyone understood, and smiled. "You may begin." Tobin took the papers Hannah handed to her. Her stomach felt queasy. She didn't want to be picked to participate, but she'd promised her parents she'd try. Besides, what if it could help her? She'd always wonder and regret it if she didn't see it through. Besides, for all she knew, she might not turn out to be a good fit for the trial after all, in which case it wouldn't matter. Resigned, she signed her name. She read the first question, halting before moving on to the next one. A frown pulled the corners of her mouth down. What the? She glanced around, but no one seemed to find the question strange. The sounds of pencil scraping across paper filled the room. She locked eyes with Miss Mercy, who arched a brow. Tobin looked at the first question. What are you most afraid of? 1. Enclosed spaces. 2. Being alone / desertion. 3. Spiders / clowns. 4. Voices. 5. Other. Specify. What about the nightmares never ending, or living in Mendwell forever? An easier question to answer would be what didn't scare her. Not that she would write the truth anyway. A person's fears were private. Reading the options, she circled other and wrote beneath it, nothing. Fear is a useless emotion. Try and figure that one out, she smirked. Next question. You're given the choice between having ultimate power or never-ending supply of money. Which would you choose and why? Tobin pursed her lips, but it didn't take long for her to know what she would answer. Neither. Ultimate power was impossible. The hunger for more power always consumed and destroyed completely. Regarding money, what would she need it for? Money created an artificial happiness. It caused people to buy more in order to feel more. Material possessions did nothing more than leave one feeling entitled, and with the belief that everything had a price. Tobin kept her answers vague and objective. Questions about her medical condition, her duration in the institute, and her treatment plan were answered honestly. As for the rest, she remained neutral. Pushing her pencil to the top of the paper, she lined it with the sheet, then sat back and waited to be excused. That's the end of chapter 18. And just a quick mention again. On October 5th, I will be part of a fundraiser for the Lakeshore General Hospital for the Birthing Center. It's called AuthorFest, and it's led by Carolyn Flower. To read more, you can go and click on the link that is on my pinned post at my Facebook page, DM Dore Writes. Until then, I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you next Monday for the next chapter of my novel, Living Nightmare. Goodbye.